There's no time for anything else. There's no time for interpretation. You have set a deadline. You are committed to it. You are moving towards it actively. And even if you do all of that to the absolute best of your ability, things will still happen in their right time. There is still a gestation period for your manifestation. Hey friends, welcome back to the Make It Inevitable podcast. I am your host, Stephenie Zamora, and today I want to talk about the difference between trusting the timing of things and working to accelerate the process. The truth is they go hand in hand. So on the show, we talk a lot about the methodology for making the impossible inevitable. And one of the ways that we accelerate our timeline is through becoming the clearing for what it is that we want to come through. We do that by shifting our way of being, becoming the version of self who has what we want right now, regardless of what our circumstances are right now. When we do that, we begin to act and exist in resonance with the things that we're working to create, no matter how big or seemingly impossible they might be. We also become a clearing for what it is that we want to start moving towards us. When we do this, we shift the odds in our favor and we collapse timelines. That said, everything still happens in its right time. That is not something that we get to control. There is a gestation period for every manifestation. And remember, please, when I use the word manifestation, we're not talking about woo-woo magical thinking. We're actually talking about bringing something into form, something that we envision, that we desire, that we're moving towards, a goal that we've set, a vision that we hold. We are moving it into form. That is what manifestation means when we talk about it in the context of this show. So when we're manifesting something, when we're working to move it into form, to bring it into form, to make it a part of our reality, we are able to collapse timelines by aligning ourselves with what it is that we want, by being the person who has it, who's ready to bring it in and to hold it. And there is a gestation period that's not up to us. We can set our goals and we can set our big and impossible timeframes. We can say that I want this to happen within a year, within 6 months, within 5 years. And that timeline might be and feel impossible for what it is that we're trying to bring to life. And that allows us to organize ourselves in such a way that we can move differently. We can engage with life and the universe differently. We can be different. And as we do that, we immediately shift the odds in our favor. We collapse the time difference, the timeline from where we are to where we want to be, because we're moving differently. We're acting in alignment with who we need to be to have what it is that we want. We are now in resonance with those people, things, experiences, opportunities, so they can happen more quickly. Being decided, we talk a lot about being decided on the show. That is frequency. Decision is a frequency. When we decide that something is happening, we move differently. We carry ourselves differently. We cut off other options and possibilities. The root of decision literally means to cut off. We are decided that this is the path that we are going down, that this is what is happening, that this is who we're going to be and the life we're going to have and the relationships that we'll find and the business that we'll build, the money that we'll make. We have cut off any other option. And when we do that, we immediately shift the odds in our favor because we are moving in expectation of it happening. We are expecting it to happen. So we can hold an expectation. We can be decided that within 1 year, I'm going to make a certain amount of money. I'm going to meet my partner. I'm going to build my business to a certain level. I'm going to own the camper, the land, the house. I'm going to have everything that I need to be able to travel the world for a year. Whatever your big impossible desire might be, it's okay to set a timeline. It can be important in a lot of cases to set that timeline, to make it impossible. To say that I'm going to do what would take most people 10 years in 3, in 2, in 1. I'm going to collapse 3 years into 90 days. Because when you decide that this is the time frame that I'm committed to making this happen within, you move differently. You make things happen that you otherwise couldn't, because if you give yourself a really long runway, if you give yourself a decade to do something, you move pretty leisurely. You have 10 years. Unless in that 10 years, you're doing something that should take 50. When you collapse the time frame, the timeline, you move differently. You organize yourself differently. You engage with life and yourself and your goal differently. And you have to think differently. You have to be creative. You have to let go of all interpretations, because there's simply no time for the stories and the spin-outs and the winning strategies. You have to figure out, okay, that didn't work. We feel our feelings. We don't go into the story, because all that's going to do is slow us down. And we have this narrow window that we've set for ourselves to make this happen. So we move differently. We organize ourselves differently. And we have to understand that everything happens in its right time. There is a gestation period for anything that you set your sights on, for anything that you desire. There's a period in which it needs before it can come into fruition. And to a degree, it is irrelevant how quickly we try to make it happen. And we still have to stay in motion. The gestation period is indefinite if we're not in motion, if we're not taking action, if we're not moving and doing and being differently in alignment with what it is that we want. And I use my camper as an example for this, because this felt impossible to me. I didn't know how I was going to make it happen. It was so different than my life had been before I realized that I wanted it and before I made it happen. And I told myself that I would make it happen within a handful of months, an impossible time frame, which meant that I had to start moving. I had to start looking at campers very quickly after I got to New Mexico. I had to learn quickly. I had to be brave and bold. I had to ask for and receive help. That was the only way I was going to be able to do it in that time frame. And yet I still didn't find the right camper until the right one came along at the right time. Everything in its right time. And I wrote about that. Within the week after I finally got the camper, brought it home, got it parked, everything in its right time. And I continuously took aligned actions. I kept showing up. I kept doing what needed to be done to align with the right camper at the right time. Same with meeting my partner. Everything in its right time. And we can see this when we look back. That's what hindsight is great for. 20/20 vision. We can look back and we can say, that's why it had to take that long. And I think about that with my partner. I would not have been ready for that relationship a week sooner. There was a certain set of experiences that I had to move through. A certain set of and layers of healing I had to heal through, grow through, work through. Very specific decisions that I had to make in order to really be ready and really be aligned with this person, this partnership. And the very last one that I made was a week before we met. I could not have made that decision without the experience before it. I just couldn't have. I had to go through the experience that I went through over a 2-week period that kind of spilled over in certain ways. And I will share more about all of this in my next book, my next memoir. I had to go through that experience. I had to have the time and space after it to process through things, to really anchor into certain decisions, new standards, new ways of being in the world. Specifically, the decision that I made within a week of meeting my partner was that I would be all of me. Unapologetically, all of me, all the time. I would be too much. I would be too intense, too passionate, too driven, too all the things that I hadn't allowed myself to be, that I would take up space, that I would take up more space with my wants, my needs, my presence, my personality, my passions, my purpose. And that I would do that unapologetically so that I could deter all the people who didn't belong in my life, friendship, business, partnership, that I would not shrink myself anymore. And then I got on a call and I met my partner very unexpectedly. And I had made that decision already. I didn't know that he was going to be as important as he is. But I made that decision. I had decided, I had cut off all other possibilities of ways of being in the world. I would be too much, too intense by other people's standards. I would be all of me, unapologetically. And anyone who could not handle that could see themselves out. They could reject me, abandon me, try to make me wrong, however that looked, just get themselves off calls, not reach out again, not hire me, whatever it might be. I had to make that decision. It took the time that it took. It took the work that it took. So our timelines that we set for making the impossible inevitable are arbitrary, but they are important. We have to really be decided on those timelines. Otherwise, we don't move as if there's a timeline. We don't organize ourselves in such a way that that timeline can actually become possible. And sometimes that is what is needed. It is needed for us to set a timeline. Otherwise, we won't move in such a way that it can happen. We don't shift our way of being because it's like, one day that might happen. Timelines are important. A lot of the timelines that we set for making the impossible happen are, in fact, arbitrary. There is no other reason than we want to see if we can do it, and that's when we would like it by. But they are important. You have to choose a timeline that will move you into action, and you have to be wholeheartedly, whole being committed to that timeline, or you won't move differently. And I've done that before. I have held in my mind because I listen to a podcast like this, or I read a book, or I hear someone else's story, and I think to myself, I should try and do this in 6 months. I'm going to do this in 3. By the end of this year, by my next birthday, XYZ will have happened, will be a reality for me. But I don't commit, not wholeheartedly, not whole being, mind, body, soul, every ounce of me on board, because I'm not fully decided. And oftentimes I have done this around things that aren't truly aligned for me. So this goes back to the very first step in this entire process and methodology. What do you desire? And it has to be your true aligned desire. It has to be aligned with you, your purpose, who you're here to be, the life you are here to live, the work you are here to do. Not what you think you should want. Not what will make you look good on paper to a prospective boss or client or partner or friend group. Not to make your parents happy or proud. You have to know what it is that you want. Because if it's not a true desire that feels aligned for you, that you are ready to go after and commit to, it doesn't matter the timeline that you set, the plan that you put in place. It's not going to happen. You will get derailed somehow. You will likely not even really start. What is your desire? Your big, seemingly impossible desire? And what is a time frame for it that will move you into action, that will force you to narrow your focus on that thing, to organize yourself, your life, your way of being, everything that you do, be, believe, say, around making it happen? And even if you put all of yourself into it, you commit all of you to making this thing happen, you organize yourself in such a way, you move differently, you stop interpreting, you stop using your winning strategy, there's simply no time for it. And you stay in motion, you're constantly having that internal conversation with yourself. What's missing? What's next? What's missing? What is it that I really want? What is next to make that happen? I did a whole episode on this. And we will link to that in the show notes, the internal conversations that you need to have to make the impossible a reality. There's no time for anything else. There's no time for interpretation. You have set a deadline. You are committed to it. You are moving towards it actively. And even if you do all of that to the absolute best of your ability, things will still happen in their right time. There is still a gestation period for your manifestation, and you don't know why that is. Because when we set our sights on something, when we decide that something is happening, that we are going to make it happen, that we are going to be who we're here to be and live our purpose, we don't know what all still needs to happen to shape us into who we need to be, to make that happen, to have it, to hold it. And when we decide that something is happening, that we are going to expand, that we are going to grow, that we're going to align with this or that, whatever it might be, the universe moves into motion to support us. It matches our commitment and our energy, but that does not mean it delivers it like that. Sometimes it means, okay, they're ready for this series of experiences and events. They need to heal that deeper trauma. They need to go through an experience that will really shape them in the ways that they still need to be shaped. We are never being punished by the universe. We are never being shown that, this isn't the right path for you. You should give up and you should go back. That's all stories. That's all interpretations. Sometimes when we make a decision and we start moving towards what it is that we want, wholeheartedly, whole being, mind, body, soul, everything on board, everything organized around it, when we become the clearing for what we want by shifting our way of being in the world, sometimes the next right step is to go through a series of events that are expansive, that are challenging, that crack us open, that teach us something, that give us the opportunity to learn a skill, that force our hand around a past trauma, unprocessed emotions, unresolved grief. Sometimes for us to have the thing that we want, we have to grow. And so what will happen is instead of that thing coming to us before or right on our deadline, we go through more. It takes longer. There's more to learn through. We might have a rock bottom experience. I just talked about rock bottom experiences. We'll link to that episode as well. We have to go through different things, and they're not all hard and challenging. They can be very expansive detours. We need to move through certain energetic checkpoints, right? We're shifting our way of being. We're moving towards something new. We're decided, and there's old things that we're aligned with, our old resonance still orbiting around us that we have to learn to say no to. And sometimes we don't say no because it looks so close to what we want and need to move forward. There are lessons. Everything in its right time. And are you organizing yourself around it in such a way that you are constantly taking aligned actions, that you are holding that way of being, the energetics necessary for aligning with it, for having a frequency, emitting a frequency from you that is in resonance with what you want, so that you start to engage with different experiences, different people, different opportunities. Sometimes it takes longer than we think it should. There is a gestation period. There are things that we need to go through. So when it comes to everything in its right time versus accelerating the process, they go hand in hand. Some things are waiting for us to shift our way of being and to engage with the universe in such a way that they can come through. And so the second that we do that, when we're really decided and on board and we are moving with expectation, when we are moving in resonance with what we want, when we are being the clearing for it, boom, there they are. Other things, we are creating clearing, we are creating a new pathway, and we are now engaging with different people and experiences and opportunities, some of which are meant to shape us more deeply so that we can really be who we need to be, because we don't know everything. Our purpose is hard-coded into us. We have had a series of experiences up until now. We have lived a certain life. We have been shaped certain ways. The times are what they are, and the times may change. We don't know everything. It's hard-coded into us. We are wired to grow into our fullest expression. But we cannot fully consciously know what that means. And it's an ongoing process, the law of more life. We are wired for continuous growth and evolution over our entire lifetime. There is no, we did all these things and now we're there. Now we're our fullest expression. We are wired for more life, more growth. So we have no idea. I had no idea what this next evolution of my work would be. Zero. And the directive for it, the future of life purpose development, dropped in 5-6 years ago. I didn't know what it meant. And it wasn't until I was really able to align myself with that context, with the truth of who I am, with my purpose, when I started doing the work to align with my fullest expression. And that's what Actualize is designed from. My process of coming into full alignment, understanding my purpose, my calling, my contribution, and actually living fully in alignment with all of that. Actualize is a phenomenal program. I am so proud of it. You can purchase it. You can dive in. You can start getting clear on these things. It wasn't until I did that work that's in Actualize, of really coming into alignment, really activating my purpose, really doing the work to actualize my fullest expression, that it became crystal clear what that directive means. And that directive will shift and change when it's time for the next evolution. Evolution and growth, the law of more life. We are wired for continuous evolution and growth, expansion over our lifetime. We have no idea what's possible for us, what's meant for us, what we're meant to create, who we're meant to be. It's so much bigger than we could ever fathom, and we have to move through the levels. Everything in its right time. And are you taking continuous aligned action? Are you working to accelerate the process? Because we can. Everything in its right time. I found the right camper in the right time. That could have taken years, longer than it did. But I was constantly taking continuous aligned action. So what is this for you? To know this, you have to be in alignment with your truth, your purpose, who you are here to be. Have you done that work? To do that, we have to do our deeper healing work. And there's so much more to this. It is not as simple as I want that, I am decided. I shift my way of being and I align with that. I eliminate my stoppers. There's so much more we have to navigate through. Our health, the systems of the world, traumas, the times changing rapidly, constantly around us. So I'm not trying to oversimplify this. And there are more conversations that we'll have and more guest experts that I'm lining up to be on the show to talk more deeply about these things that come, show up, get in our way. Things that exist in our world that are bigger obstacles for some people and not others. We have to bring awareness to this. And we can always take aligned action. And sometimes when circumstances are challenging and systems are getting in the way and the times are changing, that is continually plugging back into our desire and who we need to be to have that. And working to the best of our ability in every moment to show up in our fullest expression, to do the deeper healing and clearing work so we have more space and leverage to move through these things as they come up, to move through these obstacles, to think differently. There's a lot that goes into these processes. If you need support, if you're ready to accelerate the process as much as it can be accelerated, I would love to support you. Use the link in the show notes to book a consultation call with me. We can see if a program is the right fit. We can see if one-on-one coaching is the right fit. What is it that you desire? And are you holding both simultaneously? The understanding that everything happens in its right time. There is a gestation period that is not up to you. And are you taking aligned action to accelerate that process as much as possible? Are you decided that you are going to bust your butt, which does not mean hustle and burnout, but you are going to organize yourself with intention, with commitment around what it is that you want. And you are going to navigate the obstacles that come up from that place in a certain time frame. Are you doing both? Are you working to accelerate the process while trusting in the timing? Because when we trust in the timing, when we don't hit our arbitrary timelines for things, we don't tell a story about it. We don't make ourselves wrong. We don't give up. And we have moved ourselves so much closer to it than if we hadn't done that. It's both. That's what I have for you today. I will be back soon with another episode.